Good morning. Daniel Swartz here from Wisconsin. Well, just want to put that out there that these videos are not rehearsed. Don't know if you've noticed, but that's why there's a lot of pauses in there and not a lot of not so smooth stuff, because I don't really like to rehearse them. I've tried in the past, and every time I do, it comes off not sounding genuine. I don't know, I'm not an actor. So if I make a video and then rehearse it and rehearse it and rehearse it so everything sounds smooth and I don't stumble and I don't have pauses, and it sounds, I'm not a good enough actor to make that look and feel genuine. So most of the time these are just kind of off the cuff, but it is something that I've thought about quite a bit. So I don't know about you, but when I'm watching a video, I like it to feel genuine and not as if somebody's reading off a script. Even if the message is great, it just, I guess, don't hit you the same way. So, I know any of you horse people out there, you ever ride a mare that has a young foal that's still following her? If you do, you'll understand the story that I'm about to tell you. I'm gonna turn this down, maybe speak up a bit. A couple of my videos were a little quiet. Okay, so if you've ever rode a horse that has a young foal, what often happens the first few times you go for a ride is you get out there and that colt takes off way out in front, and it goes out off a direction you ain't going. So you just keep going in the direction that you want to ride, or whatever you're doing. Maybe you're driving, and then that colt will circle back to the mare, and it'll whinny at her, and then it'll take off again another direction, just hauling ass. Maybe it blasts back to the barn, then it can't find mama, it comes blasting out to where you are. And sometimes some foals, you gotta turn around and go back and get them, so they ain't bumping around the barnyard themselves. And that colt will just keep this up for a long time. It depends on the colt. Some of them get it sooner than others. That old hot, almost boiling cup of coffee, boy, that tastes really good. It was 12 below this morning, and I'm out here stacking lumber. That keeps me warm, but that keeps me from freezing. I don't know, warm is a relative term. Anyways, so picture this in your head. The foal wants its mama to go this way and wants its mama to go that way, and it keeps coming back and it keeps whinnying at the mother. And after a while, that colt gets tired of those outbursts of speed that go way ahead of its mama, and it comes up beside the mama that's working. She's got a job to do, because I'm riding or driving her, and then that foal will come up beside and start bumping into her. They love to come up and shoulder into mama, trying to get her to turn where they want her to go. And when that doesn't work, some of these foals will actually get in front of mama and stop. And you just keep stepping her ahead, and she'll bump that foal and it'll get out of the way. And then some of the stubborn ones, boy, it'll take them, they just don't seem to get it. But the smarter foals, after a while, they figure out it's easier just to follow right by mama's side, and they'll put their nose, they'll follow. Sometimes they're touching, sometimes they're a foot away, 2 foot away, but once they give in to the idea, they just follow with their head right by mama's flank, and they just walk along. When you stop to give the horses a break, then the foal nurses. But the next time you get the mama out, that foal, it often wants to lead, even though mom is obviously the boss and the leader. The foal is trying to push and influence in a very irritating way when you're trying to get work done. It's stopping in front of the mare and trying to get her to stop, trying to go way off in the other direction and whinny and get the mama to chase after her. So this happens when you're using the mama, and if she's trained, you just keep doing your thing. So when you're out in the pasture and the horses are loose, you often see the mare chasing that foal around. That's the dumber ones. That's the dumber mamas. Because these foals will play games and they'll just barge around the pasture and the mama's chasing after her all willy-nilly. The calm mares, the mares that are true leaders, they keep their head down and they just eat. And that foal will barge all over the pasture and do whatever it wants, and it'll come back to mama when it's tired. But the silly mothers chase those foals all over the pasture. And the calmer mothers, the good horses, the real settled and good-minded horses, they'll just stay over there and they'll eat. The only time they'll come over to that foal is if they perceive that foal to be in danger. If a dog comes in the pasture, another horse or person, then all of a sudden that mama comes over and that the foal runs for mama too. What you notice with a lot of these silly mares, those foals, it is extremely hard to get them. Those are the ones who never give up when you take that mare out to work her. Those foals they have been spoiled in the pasture by their mama. So then when it's time to get out there and work that horse, those foals they just can't understand why their mama isn't charging around after them. And it just takes them a really, really long time to figure out that it's easier to just, mama's going to take care of her, she's going to be able to nurse, it's easier just to relax and follow step by step. Now there's some parallels here with people. Be good for a lot of people to think about it. Now, I've seen a lot of women who they want to point their husband or their man in a certain direction, and they're just constantly at it. They don't trust their man to lead in the relationship at all. So they're always way out ahead. They barge out ahead and they're like, hey, let's do this, and most husbands are going to balk at that, because I believe it is in our nature to lead. And when your wife is constantly nagging at you, I don't mean that in a negative way. Most women don't realize they're doing it. They wouldn't think it's nagging. They think they're being helpful. But often men don't lead because you've never given them a chance. You're like that little foal. And your man starts to take steps in a certain direction and you run way ahead and you're like, come on, this way, yeah, let's do it. And he might stop and he's saying, no, I'm going to go the other direction. And now you look like a fool because you're way out ahead of what he was going. And then when he changes directions, you have to hurry up and run, catch up, run ahead of him again and say, come this way. And sometimes you're like that fool and you're just stopping in front of him. And he's just got to bump you out of the way. That's what it feels like. And you can't lead someone if they refuse to follow you. And you don't want to lead. But you say you don't want to lead. But you also won't get out of the way and let a man lead you. Might hurt a lot of people's feelings. If you get along in your relationship, I'm not picking on you, but it is a thing. You want a man to lead, you have to allow him to lead. And he is not you. So he's not going to do everything the way you want it done. Also, you need to be 100% confident of what you know is right. If you actually want to encourage your man in a direction, make sure you know which direction it is. Don't just criticize because you're unhappy. Not like that, 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 not like that. And another thing I've seen that can destroy a man's destroy your manhood, destroys your desire to be a leader, is when your wife gives up on you. Like, well, he's just not the right kind of man, he's not the spiritual kind of man I need a man who will lead me, blah blah blah. And suddenly she needs this man, even though she married you the way you are. She completely ignores any leadership attempts her husband might make, but she almost falls to her knees in respect and admiration of some other dude who she thinks is way more spiritual, and she wants her husband to listen to this other man, and she wants her husband like a preacher or some guy online, and she wants her husband to be more like that man, and she gives her preacher the respect and admiration that should be reserved for her husband. And she lets her husband know by her actions and sometimes words how much she wishes her husband was like the other man. That's a terrible thing to do to someone you married. Your husband needs to be the one that gets your respect and admiration. And you said for better or worse when you married him. Maybe he doesn't lead because you've always been in the lead. And he gets tired of trying to run ahead of you. And I'm going to say a self-respecting man is not going to go sprint up ahead to try to lead, because that's not a leader. You'll just be sprinting ahead of a person who's wants to lead so bad and won't get out of the way. You're both going to get in trouble. That's foolishness. And maybe you are more spiritual and godly. Maybe you do have more faith, but you still married this man, and according to the Bible, your husband is your head. He's your leader. And maybe he's not going the direction you'd want him to go, but ain't going to do any. And the Bible doesn't tell a woman to take charge of the household. She's supposed to humbly follow her husband. You might be surprised what happens. And there's a lot of women who are like, well, I can't give up that control, because then he will ruin everything. Maybe, I don't know that, but things aren't great the way it's going, so maybe you ought to give that a try. It's not, this is also something for a woman to think about. It is not your job to change your husband and give him a heart for God. That is between your husband and God. You cannot make your husband godly. You cannot make him spiritual. You cannot make him lead. So if you're having this struggle in your relationship, what you need to do as the wife is go back to the Bible and just read what is your responsibility in your relationship. What is your responsibility? What should you do in this relationship? How does God want you to behave? And if you are doing your part, be content in that and allow God to do His work on your husband. Because I guarantee you, if you try to save your husband, if you try to point him in the direction you think he needs to go, it won't work. This is not just for marital relationships. You know, I was foolish enough when I was younger to think that I would be able to change people's lives, that I would be able to say a certain thing or say it a certain way to make this person see how wrong they are and how much they need God. There were some people in my life that I was trying to show them, and I was focused on that, and I was praying for it, and I was doing all these things, and they're still going down the path they've always went down. I have come to terms with the fact that I can do nothing. It has been a humbling experience. If they come to God, it will be God's work and God's alone. Nothing to do with me. So sometimes the best thing to do is to look in the Bible and figure out what God wants me to do and do it to the best of my ability, and don't fuss over do not fuss over whether or not that people are listening to what you're saying or being changed by what you're doing. You worry about your relationship with the Lord. That has more power than you know. And if changes are made, they will be made by the Lord and the Lord alone. It is not your job, and it is not in your power to change another person. Have a good day.